What's going on, folks? So today I'm going to be checking out a band called Divine Martyr, and the name of this song is Resistance. Curious to see what this is all about, so without further ado, let's give it a listen, shall we? Rangers, go. Not bad, I liked a lot of the music. Nice guitar riffs. I like the sound of the guitars. They sounded nice and punchy and kind of heavy. And I like the keyboard. It sounded like the keyboard was doing some kind like symphonic kind of style sounds and things, but I really like that. Like there in the beginning with the guitar riff, and then whatever was going on there in the background. At first, I thought it sounded like some kind of maybe like folk, like string guitar style type instrument, but then later it sounded more like it was, the keyboard doing maybe a kind of like brass or something, but like a neat little melody there in the background, and that sounded really, really cool. I really dug that. The whole intro, musically and whatnot, was really tight. And then there was like a little bit of kind of a folk kind of flair to the song, and some of the sound, like just a folky kind of vibe in spots that I dug. So yeah, just the overall sound, I kind of really enjoyed. Again, I like the riffs and what was done with the keyboard. The bass was doing a nice job there. Really adding a little extra weight to the overall sound. So yeah, like I said, not too shabby. I thought the verses were decent. The chorus actually kind of grew on me. The first time I heard the chorus, I was like, not sure quite how I felt about it. But the more I heard it, I kind of enjoyed it more. It sounded like everything kind of came together nicely. There were some nice like backing vocals in there and stuff. So the sound itself of the song, it definitely kind of became a bit grander, especially compared to like the verses and like the pre-chorus and whatnot. Definitely has a bit more of an anthemic kind of grand sort of sound, which was nice. I liked the bridge too. We didn't really get like just like a guitar solo per se. It was much more of just kind of, I guess, mood and atmosphere with the heavy riffs and just the music and things like that. More of just kind of like almost like an interlude there before the final chorus and everything. But yeah, I dug that too, because like I said, I really did enjoy the music. Cool sound, and the vocals are interesting. I feel like she's got like a strong voice. And it's not like your typical like symphonic metal style female vocals where you typically get higher registers and things like that. Hers is a much deeper, sort of lower kind of voice, but there's definitely power in that. But some of the backing vocals, there's a bit of like a highness to it to sort of balance it out a little bit, which I thought was nice and sounded good. The only thing I would say is, for the most part, like the production sounded pretty good, the mix and everything like that. But it seemed to me like at times maybe the vocals could have used, like in the mix or whatever, a little bit of a boost, because in some spots it felt like the vocals were nicely in there in the mix, maybe a little bit above the other stuff, so you kind of can hear the power in the vocals and things like that. But other times it felt like it kind of stepped back a little bit. Mainly, like I think in the chorus, like in the verses and in the pre-chorus, I think, if I'm not mistaken, it sounded a little bit more evenly mixed in there. But then the chorus, it almost sounded like the music kind of jumped in front of the vocals a little bit. So even though you're getting this kind of anthemic chorus that needs to have some nice power to it, both musically but also vocally, to really kind of carry it, the vocals need to kind of be a step out in front of the music. The music is like the backdrop there, and the vocals need to be really kind of leading the charge for this chorus and whatnot. But it sounds like in the mix, the vocals just drop back a little bit, so they sound a little bit more muted. The vocals aren't allowed to quite have the impact that they could in that chorus, and I think that's mainly just due to somewhere in the mix, that those levels got kind of, off a little bit. So yeah, I think that would have helped the song a little bit, helped the chorus pack a little bit more of a punch if the vocals were a bit more in the forefront. You could feel the energy from the vocals a little bit more, instead of them just sounding again like a little bit muted behind the music. so it loses that impact just a touch. But aside from that, I think it was a well constructed song, a nice sound, overall sound to it. Again, all the melodies weren't too shabby. There was like nothing like jarring or kind of weird in there as far as like rhythmically or how the lyrics go or anything like that. So yeah, not too bad. Certainly a talented band here. I'd be curious to hear more, without a doubt. So yeah, that's my thoughts on these folks here. Let me know in the comments down below, what did y'all think of this song? Let's talk about it, and I'll catch you next time. Ranger out.